Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to mention that McNally Robinson Booksellers is located on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We are delighted that you all came to join us here tonight, both in person and virtually, now or in the future, to celebrate the launch of Kitty Girl, an illustrated book centered on the secret life of a cat, with text by Tricia Wasney and drawings by Doug Melnyk. I won't take up too much of your time. I just have a few exciting procedural notes right off the bat, and then I'll introduce somebody who will be offering a very special introduction this evening. Just to give you a sense of how the evening will flow, we'll have an introduction up here, followed by some readings and comments from Tricia and Doug. They'll then offer a reading, and then we'll open the floor to questions from you in the audience. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also participate by writing any questions you might have in the live chat. For those of you here, we'll just ask, for the benefit of all those watching at home, I will circulate through the crowd and just ask you to ask me your question, which I will then repeat back into the microphone for the benefits of all those at home. As I will invariably not do justice to your eloquence, I will ask that you keep your questions relatively succinct and in the form of a question, as you'll have ample opportunity to interrogate both Doug and Tricia and offer them any kind words you might have when you meet them at the signing table after the event. At the close of the event, we'll ask that you remain seated for one moment as we safely transport them across the store. I won't take up too much more of your time, but I did want to tell you a little bit about the person who'll be coming up to say a few kind words about Tricia and Doug. Bill Richardson is the winner of Canada's Stephen Leacock Memorial Medal for Humor and a former radio host. He has also written several highly acclaimed books for children that have won a number of awards. I won't go on at length because I could be listing awards and accomplishments by this particular gentleman for a very long time. But I will say that his two most recent beautiful books are Last Week, which is right here, and most recently this month's publication, Lola Flies Alone. So we do have copies of those as well. They're just behind our cash desk if you'd like to ask for a copy of either of those titles. They are wonderful, humorous, and incredibly heartfelt, as anybody would anticipate from Bill Richardson. His latest, Lola Flies Alone, was just published by Running the Goat Press, and you've likely heard or read him recently on the legacy of Mavis Gallant in this, her centennial year. Please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome to one of our favorite people, Mr. Bill Richardson.
Thanks, John. Thanks to all of you for coming, and thanks most especially to Tricia and to Doug for having produced this really extraordinarily beautiful book. I met Tricia. Doug is new to me. So Doug, you have so much to look forward to. There are many more shirts exactly like this. Some of which will be available at my next garage sale. I was lucky enough. That my partner, Bill Packett, 10 years ago, was selected by the Winnipeg Arts Council, where Tricia was running a public art program, pardon me, to install a piece behind the what was called once upon a time the Centennial Library, the Millennium Library now, empty full, and later on a piece that hangs on the Broadway Boulevard. The point being that it was through that good luck on the part of Bill that I had the good luck to be able to meet Tricia, who's since become a wonderful friend. It wasn't really so very, very, very long after I met Tricia that I first heard some of the story that is told in Kitty Girl. And another bit of good luck was that by becoming friends with Tricia and with her partner Rick, I was able to see a little bit of the environment that's described in the book, and also to be the firsthand recipient of the huge demonstration of heart that you'll find in Kitty Girl. There's I'm not going to talk for a moment, but there's so much about this book that's just extraordinary. Looking at it, it makes me wonder why this doesn't happen more often. An illustrated story for, well, I shouldn't say it's for grown-ups. It's not. It's very family friendly. There's absolutely no reason why a child reader couldn't or wouldn't enjoy Kitty Girl. But Tricia will, and Doug will correct me if I'm wrong once I'm finished speaking. But my clear sense is that it wasn't with children first and foremost in mind that this story was created. I think though that I spent a number of years working as a children's librarian. I still have that horrible feeling of fun fur on my hands from all the puppet shows. But when as a children's librarian, you spend a lot of time looking at picture books, and one of the ways you judge them is to assess them, is to look at how the text and the pictures work together. Each tells a story in its different way. And typically it would be the text that comes first. If we're in this situation where we have two creators, rather than a sole creator, a writer and illustrator, typically the text would come first, and the illustrations come afterwards, and they interpret the text. They don't necessarily do a literal job of telling exactly the same story the text does. And Doug's done such a beautiful job in this of exactly that, of taking Tricia's story and of finding ways to expand it and enhance it, and to also make it his own. By making it his own, it makes it their own, the whole thing. But when I think about just the story itself and about the writing of the story itself, how do you assess good writing or a good writer? It's what the writer says and how the writer says it is really what it comes down to. And Tricia has done such a beautiful job in this. She's a really, really good writer. It's a story that is it's domestic, and it's quiet. It's quite inward looking, and it's very surprising. It's the story, as they will tell you, of these cats that have come to roost. But more than that, it's a story about family, a story about identity. It's a story about nature in the city. It goes to many surprising places. And what I would say about Tricia as a writer is that the way that she does that is so extraordinary. She turns on a dime. And you know how you're reading along and you can sense that there's a change coming, that the writer is ramping up to a change. There are all kinds of, this never happens in this text. It happens before you know it. And it's so organic. It happens so naturally. I've read it through a number of times now in different iterations over the last couple of years. And I've always been struck by this, just by how subtle a writer Tricia Wasney is. That's nothing you can learn. That's a gift, and it's one that she has in spades. I said I wasn't going to talk too long. I've already done that. The cats are rescues. They're rescue cats. And if I had to say that this story was about one thing more than anything else, I would say that it is really a story at its heart that is a story about just that. It's a story about rescue. It's a story about how through the reflection on these two creatures who come to inhabit and to enliven a domestic set of circumstances, all kinds of acts of rescue come. Rescue of story, rescue of the self. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, visually, and the text itself. And also, as you will see when you look at it, a beautifully, beautifully designed book. You guys, you've done yourselves proud. And congratulations. And I look forward so much to hearing what you have to say about it. So thanks for asking me. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Bill. My heart is just about bursting, and not in a call the paramedics way, but in a feeling the love kind of way. And I, excuse me, I really appreciate being here with, with Bill and Doug, two of my dearest friends, and being surrounded in the audience, both here and online, by many more dear friends and family. I wanted to thank McNally Robinson for taking our little book on and having it available and creating this launch for us. It's a very special thing. Doug and I have been working on this book for about 7 years, and pardon me. When I say that, it's not like we were slogging in the fields working on this book. It was a beautiful kind of slow burn in a way. And we both really like that, because when I started the story, I was still working full-time at my public art manager job, and it didn't leave a lot of time for doing other things. And so we both agreed that it was fine to just kind of take it slow. And I think that really contributed to the book in a big way. And it also contributed to this really incredible friendship that we developed through it. I also want to thank the Manitoba Arts Council and the Winnipeg Arts Council, who really generously funded the creation phase of this book early on. It was really great to get that affirmation from your peers that this was a story worth pursuing, and that we had the time and the resources to be able to work on it. And I also really want to thank my friends, family, and neighbors who are so dear to me and who contributed so much to many of the stories that are contained in the book. Also, big, huge thanks goes to Larry Glosson, who is Doug's partner. And he is like the, excuse me, rarely seen but silent partner of the Kitty Girl Collective, who did just an amazing job working with us to, well, first of all, when Doug was first doing his drawings, he was hand lettering all of them. And some of those hand lettered drawings appear in the book, which I'm really happy about. But we decided that we'd probably turn 100 before the book was finished, because it's so labor intensive. So Larry, who is just like brilliant at everything he tries, discovered that there was a font that you could take someone's lettering and turn it into a font. But he didn't just do that. He had Doug make like 3 versions of each letter so that he could then vary them. So the font actually looks like it's handwritten, like it's not perfectly, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So huge thanks to him. He also did all of the beautiful layout and design of the book, and all of the negotiating with the printing, which I am so grateful for, because he really knew what we all wanted and really made it happen. Yeah, I just want to end by saying that it was the writing of a book, and it was also the creation of a pretty amazing friendship. And I'm going to say it was an incredible journey. And I feel really grateful for all that's come of it, both through the book and through my really beautiful friendship with Doug. So, excuse me, I'm just going to cough. So I'm going to stop going on about that now, and I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. and then I'll turn it over to Doug. And I really wasn't sure, and oh, look, I lost my place already. I wasn't sure what part I was going to read. No, why don't I just read where the page fell? That's what I'll do. Our vet confirmed that Mo and Lou were not related because Mo's development showed he was a couple of weeks older. Our vet is the magical Dr. M. Every appointment and checkup starts with Dr. M gently laying each cat down on the examining table and showering them with kisses and tender talk. Even skittish Lou becomes mesmerized. Dr. M has been good to our family for many years. As Simon and Lenore got older and their bodies didn't work as well as they used to and their bones hurt, Dr. M showed us how to administer medication by injection that prolonged their lives in a very positive way. Lenore eventually became deaf, but she seemed very serene and waited patiently every evening for me to settle in on the couch. Then she would curl up on my lap, facing me and purr and kind of gaze at me until I could feel the tears building up in my eyes. I knew she wouldn't live much longer and I wanted to so badly to hold on. Lenore died suddenly one morning when she was 19 years old. I had been getting ready for a very early work meeting when R called out urgently to me. When I opened the bathroom door, R was cradling her and softly said, "Lenore has passed." He told me later that she had very suddenly had a kind of seizure and had collapsed, panting, and that her breathing had soon become raspy and uneven. He had picked her up, her almost lifeless body, and wondered if he would have to end her life. But she died right there then in his arms. When her brother Simon developed a tumor a few months later, Dr. M had said, "Take him home, let him have his fun, and when the time comes, you will know." And strangely, we did. When we called Dr. M, he told us to come in that day. I wrapped Simon in a familiar blanket, the Afghan my mom had crocheted 30 years before, and took him outside to sniff all his favorite things one more time. Then it was time to go. As Dr. M got ready to use the needle, he said, "Put your faces here, right in front of his. Yours should be the last eyes he sees." And so we did.
You? Well, it's not hard just to keep from sobbing openly. I'm going to read a small section from Tricia's story, and you have to remember these are Tricia's words, these are Tricia's experiences and Tricia's memories. This really struck me. I want to talk a little bit about the process of making this book. I had a lot of fun, I have to say, during the whole pandemic. A lot of people didn't have fun, but I really did, mostly because Tricia and I were just constantly emailing each other and giving each other suggestions and ideas, and a lot of things inspired me to make drawings, a lot of your stories. And one of the drawings that I really wanted to make was about your father, because the way that you talk about your parents is so compelling to me. And I mean, in a way, one of the most fun things was getting to know Tricia, and the whole project was, in a way, you know, is Tricia kitty girl, you know? But anyway, she had this great memory of her father, and that's what I want to read from. It's the tongue twister. It's funny to think about that recliner, because seeing my dad in it was quite rare. He worked full-time for the Canadian Pacific Railway. He worked the graveyard shift so that he could farm during the day, and each summer he used his entire 4-week vacation to seed crops, cut and combine grain, and bale the straw and hay. The times I did hang out with him were really special, like when I was really little and he would get on his hands and knees and pretend he was a horse and give me rides on his back around the living room during the opening credits to Bonanza.
Yeah, that's it, folks.
You have to read it.
I think we just read half the book. It's not very thick, as you can see. No, really, that is, I think, all we're going to read for tonight. But we're happy to take questions if anybody has any.
So just a reminder that if you do have a question or here in the audience, please just put up your hand. I'll wander over to you and then I'll repeat it into the microphone. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, just write it in the chat and we'll get it to Tricia and Doug. Yes. Mr. Richardson. Could you speak a little about your decision to self-publish?
Oh, good question.
Very good question. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, so interesting. So when Doug and I began this journey, this incredible journey, sorry, I have to do it again. I'll stop now. We really saw this as an artist book that we would just do a little run of on photocopier, and we weren't out to make a huge profit or anything like that. But we did go to a publisher with the idea, and they were very enthusiastic about it immediately. And we worked with them for a couple of years, actually. And then I guess we'll just say they ran into some difficulties, and we were not taken on after all, even though we actually had a contract. So having done that, we tried a few other avenues, but I think this is a kind of a weird little book. It's a bit of a hybrid. Is it a storybook? Is it for children? What is it exactly? We're not even sure. And so I think some of the publishers we approached really liked it, and they were very encouraging. They read the manuscript and gave us lots of good feedback, but they didn't really have a place for it. And so we decided that, as Doug said, which I loved, because Larry and Doug and I had worked very closely on this. And after going through various iterations of talking to people and how are we going to do this, Doug said, I think we found the perfect number for Kitty Girl, and it's 3, the 3 of us. And so we just decided at that point that we were going to self-publish and see what happened. Do you want to add anything, Doug?
Well, all I'm saying is that it seemed we had total freedom in the end, and I can't think of any other situation where we would have had total creative freedom. We made the book look exactly like the way that we wanted it to, and I don't know if anybody would have really encouraged or even allowed that to happen. We just, well, it's DIY. I've always thought that Winnipeg is the do-it-yourself place, and that's what worked for us.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
This is a question for Doug. How long does it take you to do your intricate drawings?
Usually about 1 a day. Yeah.
Even the
Yeah, that was a very fun day because that's very different. I've always thought that handwriting in a way is just a form of drawing, and that is really a good example of that, because I wrote, I guess 100 or 150 titles on this one drawing of Tricia's bookcase full of lavish books. And yeah, so that was a very fun day. I mean, they were all very fun days. I always felt very inspired. I have to say that there was no problem getting enough energy. I thought the Kitty Girl story itself had a burst of energy, and we were able to just use that for the whole time.
Yeah, we often say that it has its own kind of energy. It's its own thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And just about the bookcase, I remember Doug asked me, could you, because he saw some of the books from pictures, but he asked if I could send him some titles. And then in the end, he put a whole bunch in that I do not have on my shelves, which I thought was hilarious.
I don't either.
As booksellers, we spent a lot of time looking at that picture.
Oh, awesome.
What did the needle do to Simon?
Oh, Louisa. Hi, Louisa. Louisa's my grandniece, who I love, and her sister Fina with all my heart. The needle put him to sleep forever. Yeah. Well, you know what? They were 19 years old when they died, and that's very old for cats. So we felt like they had really good lives. They gave us really good lives, and we gave them really good lives. And in the end, it was the most humane way, because he wasn't eating anymore. He was very sad. And so after that, we were very sad, and we'd come home from work and the house was really quiet. There was no cats greeting us at the door. And I said to Rick, like, I really love you, but this is really boring. And so we decided we'd go to the Humane Society to look. And of course, we came home with 2 kittens a week later. And some people said to us, oh, well, you didn't grieve very long. But the fact is that I feel like it was exactly the right thing to do. Some people really like to take their time to get new pets. And I really respect that. But for us, it was, we needed that life again. We needed that life back in our home.
And I like to think about the question, why write about something like that? I think that's what was said. And I have to say, I'm very grateful for all the sad things that you wrote about. The book is quite sad. There's a number of deaths. And to me, those were very, very compelling moments. And they're very important.
And this is a comment from the audience about how that passing is a choice when you take cats on, that you know that they will pass before you. And she also mentioned that she has a cat who is now, sorry, how old? 17 years old.
I met your cat, Lenore. She's fluffy and beautiful. One of them anyway. Oh, boys, okay. Okay, well, kitty girl.
That's the issue.
So this is a question from me, which is unexpected. And it was about the challenges of what we do with a book like this, which is a hybrid as well and doesn't necessarily fit into an easy category. And I will say that when we were approached with Kitty Girl for the first time, when we just heard the description of it, we didn't really understand it. We knew that it was going to be a lovely book. We knew Doug's work, we knew Tricia's work, and thought that it was going to be fantastic, but didn't know what to expect until we saw it. And the wonderful thing about Kitty Girl, once you've actually read it and taken a look at it is a genuine journey, and it's a beautiful one that's flush with humor and love of pets and just love of life in general and really paying respect to it. So it's the type of book where as soon as you've read it, it makes perfect sense. And I think having that ability to communicate that to people, and also the wonderful thing about it being such a hybrid book is that means we can put it in so many different places in the story. So we have it in our Canadian art section, we have it in our Prairie Writers section, it's in our new release section, we're able to put it in the pet section. So it's that wonderful book that is everything, and we're able to just place it wherever we like and help it to find readers that way. So
Who knew?
Yeah.
I'm a marketing genius and I didn't know.
Yes.
I want to know if Doug and Tricia have plans for another collaboration.
Doug and Tricia, do you have plans for another collaboration?
Let's say yes.
It's so funny, I think about how this happened, and Tricia told me the story, and immediately the first thing that I said is, we have to make a book. And I really didn't understand what that meant at that point. You know? I understand better now. It's worth doing.
I have a question for Doug. Is drawing animals his favorite thing?
Doug, is drawing animals your favorite thing?
What do you think? I have to say, I've said this before, my sister helped me get my library card when I was 10. And at that point, it was my dream to make drawings of animals for a book about animals. And I had to wait 60 years, but it did come true.
We have a question from Kathy via YouTube who says, congratulations, Tricia and Doug. If cats could design their outdoor environment, what would that look like?
Oh, man. Oh, I think it would be exactly like it is, full of birds and mice and grass to chew on and things to kill, which is partly why we no longer let our cats out. I don't know. See, that seems pretty ideal to me. It's hard keeping them in now after having let them go out because I feel like I'm robbing them of pleasure. But I pick grass and bring it in the house, and Rick made these really nice holders for the grass, and we try to make an environment. And we keep talking about making a catio, so they'll have grass and stuff to play with inside, but we haven't quite got there yet. I think there's a couple of questions back there.
Tricia, could you describe how your cats walk on the ceiling?
Thank you, Diane. Yes, so that question comes from Diane. Diane's mom is 90, is she 95 now? Yeah. 95 years old. And Diane's a very, very, very close friend of mine. And her mom is a very close friend of mine now too. And when Rick and I were away once, Diane came to feed our cats and she brought her mom over. And Rick has built these amazing, elaborate cat shelves all through the house. So they can jump on shelves, and he even made holes through the walls so that they can go into different rooms and walk over beams to get into another part of the house. And sometimes they just lay on the beam and stare at you. And so it's so cute because Diane's mom just remembers that moment of this, like, those cats are walking on the ceiling.
Yeah, you have a place for a cat, it's like, see, it's your place.
Yeah.
And this was just a comment that the ideal place for a cat seems to be Tricia's home.
But you know, in terms of the question, will Doug and I do another collaboration? You know, no pressure, but one thing that Doug and I have really shared over the last many years that we've been working on this is we were both like really in love with our parents. And that was a really huge thing that we talked about a lot, was our love of our mothers and our fathers. And I don't know, I think I mentioned once that it might be really fun to do a project about our mothers.
And very sad, yeah. And very fun, yeah.
And very sad and very funny, yeah.
Yeah. My mother was hilarious.
Yeah, and you were very close to her.
Yeah.
And they're both gone now, sadly, of course, but yeah, so, yeah, we'll talk.
This is someone from the audience mentioning that she knows someone who can build you a catio.
Oh, okay. Like, for not too much money? We'll talk.
Yes.
Tricia, could you speak a little bit about how you felt when Mo wouldn't come to you at your neighbor's house?
Well, I'm not going to tell the whole story because there's a bit of a spoiler alert there. Confused and surprised, but I'll save that for reading the book.
I just have a comment. Trying to slot the book, I think, is still easy. Basically, it's hard. The first time I saw it, I still.
And this is a comment about where to place the book, and just mentioning the fact that the first time he saw it, he just thought, this is art, which it clearly is, and becomes readily apparent to anyone who will consider. Right. Are there any more questions from the audience? All right. Well, if there are no further questions, if you have any final words or any comments that you folks would like to make.
I just want to be magically transported.
Yes, I was wondering if we were going to be transported on a litter. Oh, the puns are so terrible. I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I just feel so, like, I don't even feel nervous. I feel just happy, and I'm happy Kitty Girl is out running in the world now, and thank you all for coming.
Yes, indeed. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Oh, did you have any closing comments, Doug?
Nope.
Sorry. So yes, thank you all so very much again for joining us, both here now within the space, virtually on YouTube, or watching this in the future. We will now transport Doug and Tricia to a table immediately beside the cash desk, not on a litter as due to the shape of my back. So with that, we'll just ask you to remain seated for one moment. At that point, please feel free to wander up and have a copy of the book signed. We have copies at the central cash desk. We have copies at the signing table. It's available in both paperback and hardcover, so both of those are an option. You don't need to pay for the book before you get into the signing line, but we ask that you please do pay for the book before you leave the store. There are also copies of Bill Richardson's most beautiful last two books, or most recent two books. Here, those are available at the cash desk as well, so just ask for a copy and they can pass them along. You might be able to approach Bill to get one signed. But otherwise, thank you all so very much. This has been such a wonderful celebratory evening, and I'm so glad you could all join us. Please join me one final time in acknowledging Doug Melnyk and Tricia Wasney.